Good day. Please take a seat and shut the door behind you. Can't have prying eyes on us after all. I mean, who knows what we're planning in this smoke-filled back room? After all, it's highly classified. I'm Agent Niall, the only man who knows what really happened at Roswell. And this is Agent Christina, who swears by George Soros that she got anal probed by the reptile overlords dishing out the COVID vaccine. Don't worry though, your secret's safe with us. Just sign here, here and here. Now look, I'm not saying it's aliens, but what I'm saying is, you open your mouth and we'll drive you out in our black sedan into the desert and nobody will ever find your body. Welcome, new agent, to the secret and ancient order of the Free Speech Podcast. How goes it, Agent Christina?
It goes well enough, thank you for asking.
I heard on the grapevine that George Soros is Hungarian and he's apparently a leftist, and you're Hungarian and a leftist. There's something going on there?
I truly don't know. Those two things usually don't match.
Yeah, well, it's I question the fact that he's a leftist at all, since he's like a billionaire. I think that immediately contradicts that particular conspiracy theory.
Right, well, it's a question whether I'm Hungarian at all. It's not entirely accurate, but...
Or so they say.
So they say.
If the copyright infringement did not let me do it, I would be totally abusing the X-Files theme. Do you ever watch those YouTube videos where there's Grand Theft Auto 5 feels, and whenever there's a glitch, they play this and the X-Files theme, there's a picture of the Illuminati eye appears over the car, glitching the hell out and contorting.
Yeah, that's a classic. I know what you're talking about.
And so, what's your favorite conspiracy theory? Don't give me an obvious one. Give me something that's really interesting.
Oh, okay. My favorite conspiracy theory is Nazis on the dark side of the moon.
Okay. What's that entail? I've heard variations of this one, but there's so many of them.
Well, it's kind of the idea that the Nazis didn't really lose World War II. They just went into hiding, and they are biding their time on the dark side of the moon until the world is sufficiently vulnerable to their... Yeah. I don't know. It's just such a wonderfully, really frightening idea that they would be hiding on the dark side of the moon. And it's so outlandish. It's just so funny.
Isn't that a sci-fi upgrade of the one where it's the Nazis are in Antarctica, but Antarctica is just not cool enough anymore?
Yeah. It's very much the same idea, but this time it's the dark side of the moon.
Can you imagine what, when the space probes fly over, do they look up and go, Heimlich, duck down, they see us?
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly what they imagine it like.
My favorite conspiracy theory has to be the most absurd one, just because it is the most, ballsy. And it's the one that everyone in the world who has power is actually a secret lizard. Oh, right, yeah. It's so beyond absurd, it's so all-encompassing, and it's just so unleashed that it's you just have to admire its sheer hatred of reality. It's just we're gonna lie so damn big. Yeah, that one is so weird, and I assume you've seen these YouTube videos. They're yo, look, this is proof that George Bush or whatever is actually a secret lizard, and they show just a regular old camera glitch, and they say that his shape-shifting abilities are failing him, or the hologram is glitching, and it's... Yeah, all right. It's sort of like mistaking the fact that you're old, ugly, and likely had very poorly executed plastic surgery as the fact that you're a lizard.
Yeah.
Yeah, so our dish of the day is conspiracy theories. Or is it? That's the problem with conspiracy theories. You never know what is true and what isn't, and frankly, that's the point. Now, give it to me, straight from the gut. What's a conspiracy theory?
I think the name conspiracy theory pretty much sums it up. But alright, what is a conspiracy theory? It's a need to explain the hardships in the world on something that just doesn't have to do with regular old human incompetence or human failure. Just try to find a scapegoat so that we can't be blamed. It's the global cabal of shape-shifting lizards from Alpha Draconis. And
there was too much detail in that for me not to worry.
Well, I think it's also, in some aspect, a way to make the world more interesting. Like, the world sucks, all right? It's a bad time. It's annoying. It's
the wrong mixture of negative, painful, and boring.
Yeah, exactly. So conspiracy theories,
like you're correct, but I wanted you to go even more simple.
Yeah.
They are literally theories about hypothesized conspiracies.
Well, yeah.
So it's literally a theory that a conspiracy may be occurring.
Yeah.
Like, I guess before we go on to that, we should discuss what a conspiracy is. Because conspiracies are real. They are genuinely real and have happened and are documented. A conspiracy is whenever someone powerful or people powerful do something that is unsanctioned by the people and may not be in the people's interests. So they kind of want to keep it on the down low. So it's, secret people doing some nasty stuff you may not want them to be doing. But a theory about a conspiracy theory is itself just a theory.
Yeah.
So a conspiracy is real. A conspiracy theory, well, it's a question mark, isn't it? So our main villains or characters in conspiracy theories are usually some sort of secretive, sinister, and or powerful person / people. Can you think of a good example of one of our conspiracy, secretive, sinister folk?
I mean, really anyone in power.
I'd say the most famous one, in my recollection, is the Jews with the Nazis, the Jewish conspiracy theory.
Oh, yeah.
The Jewish conspiracy theory was directly used as an excuse to exterminate them.
Yeah.
In the modern day, what we're living through at the time of recording, look at the many conspiracy theorists about Bill Gates and his supposed nanobots in the COVID-19 vaccine.
Yeah, and the Jew conspiracy is still going strong now more than ever since, since that time.
Your secret compadre, George Soros, is part of that Jewish conspiracy because he's a Jewish Hungarian.
Right.
When you go into your back room and you smoke cigars and you make plans to topple the God-fearing American conservative people.
Yeah.
Are you in any way sympathetic to conspiracy theorists?
Well, it depends on the theory.
I didn't ask about the theory. I asked about the theorist.
Oh, I used to be when I was 14, 15 years old. That was over 10 years ago. I'm that old. So, like, the fact that I grew out of it, but we have these 50-year-old people who are still going strong.
And often US Congress people.
Yeah. No, I have no... No. No. Well, look, I grew out of it before I became an adult. It's high time that they do.
Well, I have a little bit of sympathy for them. And it is a little bit. Because they are suspicious of genuinely powerful people. There is no doubt that Bill Gates is one of the most powerful people in the world. And that's where my sympathy ends. Abruptly and thoroughly.
Yeah. I agree with that part. Sure. But they are just so good at misidentifying the problem, the enemy.
Exactly. Now you brought that up. An important part of a conspiracy theory is they often ignore more probable explanations for events. This annoys me because a rational person will always take into account Occam's razor or the principle of parsimony, which suggests that the simplest explanation is likely the reality.
Yeah, but I've seen plenty of conspiracy theories who take into account Occam's razor, but they completely misunderstand it. So like, oh, look, Occam's razor says that it has to be aliens because that's a much simpler explanation. But then like, no, but you forgot to take into account that you have so many other things to explain. Like, okay, how come we didn't, like, you know...
They often disregard the need to take into account of all of the assumptions you make for a particular theory.
Yeah.
Now, a conspiracy theory is distinct from an actual conspiracy. And conspiracy theories are generally held by the non-lunatic peoples to be unreasonable at worst and probably at best unlikely. What do you think is the most likely conspiracy theory you've ever heard?
Well,
not one that's true, not one that turned out to be true.
Yeah, okay. No, I think honestly the like Illuminati conspiracy theory that everyone in power in the world is in on the same idea and the same, you know, working for the same nefarious goals and part of the same organization. Well, it's a bit you know, it's taking it to extreme in many cases, but like there's no question that people in power in the world are doing things that we don't agree with, and they have nefarious goals. Like as far as I'm concerned, that's completely true. Now, what you decide to call that and the actual goals you assign to them, there's where the conspiracy, you know, one differs because the conspiracy theory has so many variations and just to mean anything. It's just like everyone in the world is part of the Illuminati and they are bad. But that's like the explanation you get.
Yeah, that sort of conspiracy theory takes the correct assessment that the upper classes have a united class interest.
Yeah.
And it like adds imagination to the fact that they will automatically act in a way which benefits their material needs as the upper class.
Yeah.
My version of the most likely true conspiracy theory is the assassination of JFK. Because it's incredibly small scale, incredibly contained, and JFK was genuinely considered by the CIA to be far too soft on communism. And you know what the CIA was like with communism. So I'm not like saying I believe this conspiracy theory even in the slightest, but I'm saying in my assessment, that's the one that we considered most likely in the pantheon of well-known conspiracy theories.
Yeah, we have our own Swedish version of JFK, actually. Have you heard of Olof Palme?
I think I watched a YouTube video and I've forgotten about it.
Right. Well, he was social democratic prime minister back in when was it? Well, it was quite a time ago when he was stabbed randomly on the Stockholm street one night, and the whole investigation was like a total disaster, and there's a lot of thing about that I don't even know about that. That's our little Swedish version of JFK. I'm
sure there's actually quite a few of these. Popular person who goes against the establishment has accident. Establishment isn't exactly unhappy to see him go. People are like, well, that looks a wee bit suspicious. Well, whenever you're a conspiracy theorist, it is a constant temptation to ignore the more probable explanation for an event because you're looking to confirm a previous worldview that you have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, this is born of a deep distrust of authority. Now, this is where we're going to stone man their argument. We're going to opposite a straw man, and we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say real conspiracies do exist. For example, The belief that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction was used as casus belli to invade Iraq. That was untrue. It was based on false evidence. It was a conspiracy theory which the Western media spread, even though the intelligence was faulty. And as a result, there's good case for George Bush and Tony Blair that should be brought to The Hague and charged as war criminals as a result. That was a real conspiracy. There was also MK Ultra, where the CIA gives hallucinogenic drugs to people with and without their consent, leading up to the point where one of their agents was drugged and possibly threw himself out the window or was thrown out the window by an assassin because he became disillusioned with their program and might have blabbed. These are true. They're not. Yeah. So conspiracies do exist. So we're going to keep that in mind. We're going to strongman their argument and not strawman them.
And just as a side note, it is interesting because conspiracy theorists are usually so much far off the deep end that people have like an instant, gut reaction to say like, no, okay, that's rubbish. That has resulted in many people, like, we know that MK Ultra happened, but I know so many people are like, oh no, that's a conspiracy theory, what are you talking about? But it's not, it's fact, it's confirmed fact.
We need to keep in mind how reason works when it comes to figuring out what is true and what is false. For example, where the evidence takes you is where you must go. That does not mean that the place the evidence takes you is going to be conventional, expected, or typical.
Yeah.
And for example, it is equally irrational to say MK Ultra didn't exist as it is irrational for me to say the Queen is a lizard.
Yeah.
They're just both wrong. They're both
precisely.
irrational.
And people are bad at this. People are very, very bad at this balanced mode of thinking. People are usually one way or the other, and that frustrates me to no end.
We should take a wee look under the bonnet here about how conspiracy theories actually work. I'm a writer, and I see them as a type of creative writing, but in an organic sort of way. They function like a piece of literature, and if you study literature, stories are made. A different type of story is made with different ingredients. So what ingredients come together to make a conspiracy theory? The first thing you need is actually the theory itself, right? But that's not enough. I can come up with a conspiracy theory right here and right now, and no one would believe it. Not a single conspiracy theorist would buy it, because if it doesn't have the following features. The first is the ability to resist falsification via circular reasoning. So this is where you cannot put a straightforward A leads to B, which leads to C. There's always a part that is unknowable, unprovable. And so it can neither be debunked or proven. It's a type of thing that's incredibly unscientific, for example, where you have to have a criteria to prove or falsify the results of your experiment. The conspiracy theory stands outside that and can neither be proven nor disproven. Otherwise, it will not work as a conspiracy theory.
Yeah, and that's irrational. That's a classic thing we learned during philosophy class that if that kind of argument just doesn't follow rational principles.
The most classic example of this is, let's say our conspiracy theory was that Johnny kicked the ball and he kicked the ball over there, but you go and look over there and the ball isn't there. And you say, well, Johnny couldn't have kicked the ball. And I say, well, the government could have taken the ball, couldn't they? And it's like, but we don't know that. So they come up with this thing where they pick a point where you cannot disagree or agree. Anything could have happened to the ball. Anything at all. Or nothing could have happened to it. It might not have happened in the first place.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you could do about that. It's circular reasoning because you could go round and round and round, where the classic way is a conspiracy theory is, the conspiracy theory is debunked. or that's what they want you to think. The moment like you immediately say any evidence that contradicts your conspiracy theory is by definition suspect.
Yeah.
As a result, you ignore all evidence against the theory and you lean into areas where evidence is lacking. This is actually incredibly common in things outside of conspiracy theories as well. Even in some pseudoscientific theories with quantum mechanics and things, where like you got the idea of quantum woo or quantum deepity, where they lean into the weird unknown parts and fill in the gaps with nonsense. Like this is a real human tendency to find an area that can neither be proven or disproven and like shovel your mental crap into it.
Yeah.
Another feature they have is a tendency to plug themselves into feasible reality. So they usually have some substratum of truth to them. For example, with the Roswell crash, real military bases, real military personnel, real dates, times, what have you. But the actual story is totally fictional. And it's...
Yeah.
So you get currently existing evidence and you reinterpret it.
Yeah. But even that's very generous, because nowadays we have, flat earth conspiracies, which have no rhyme or reason at all. Just...
Indeed. They're like higher evolved conspiracies. That I would argue those type of conspiracies are closer to becoming a religion.
Yeah.
Well, actually, we're going to mention that a bit later.
Fascinating. You know that they did a test that they were like, okay, we did this thing and this will prove that the earth is actually flat, and that actually proved that the earth was round. And they were like, oh, well, there must be something wrong with our equipment. We will do this again sometime.
Do you remember there was a guy that shot up in the air and like to see if the earth was round? I think he like crashed and like maimed himself.
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah.
It's like, I can't walk anymore. Ow. I was like, I hope it was worth it, son.
Yeah, they are a special breed for sure.
The interesting thing is, this is what I think is true. This is not like accepted theory, but I think it's true. The conspiracy theory is a type of baby religion. It is a religion in its nascent stage, and it can be connected with religion via the fact that both require faith. They both disregard reason and logic. Instead, they require belief.
Yeah.
And so in my opinion, a religion is basically just a conspiracy theory that really got going. A conspiracy theory eventually develops into a cult, and a cult into a religion. For example, you can imagine how Christianity started, people whispering, "Did you hear about that fella that walked on water?"
Yeah.
That same sort of thing, Can't prove it, can't disprove it. It's just whether you believe it or not. And so I think there is a connection there, at least archetypally. There's a similar brain process or psychological process that is in common between them. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Do you have any conspiracy theories that might be unique to Sweden that we would not have heard about outside?
Well, there are plenty of theories regarding the Olof Palme case. And something else where there most definitely are, but none come to mind right now, to be honest. Swedes generally aren't as prone to conspiracy theories as Americans would be, because it requires this big distrust of government and authority. And not saying that Swedes, absolutely trust authority, but it's nowhere to the level that is in America. Like, we have a general trust that they are at least trying to do good.
There seems to be a type of level-headedness in Swedish culture.
If you can call it that, sure.
They don't seem very prone to flights of fancy.
No. No, Swedes aren't very prone to flights of fancy. They really aren't.
Well,
and we can see this in the fact that most Swedes are atheists, or agnostic. Swedes have a tendency to trust what is sure to a fault. I mean, it has been a real during this pandemic, but in most cases it's probably a merit, I'd say.
It could be criticized in some degree, and
It could.
in other ways.
I have criticized it plenty. Just like it's very different from the American idea, and that mentality. That's
Totally.
a very different phenomenon.
We got one here, which I wouldn't exactly call it a conspiracy theory because it is a kind of conspiracy, but it's not as developed as some. That in the formation of Northern Ireland, there was a belief among the Protestant population that if there was not a partitioned island and the North was ruled by Dublin, there would be a Catholic conspiracy against the Protestants. And like in some way they would be, I don't know, the details aren't clear, wound up, killed or abused or oppressed or something. It was a general sense that if Northern Ireland got into the hands of Dublin, the Protestant population would be in some way tyrannized. And so, that general attitude did lead to the creation of the strange little region I live in. So it's a type of conspiracy theory, although it's not really full-blown in the way that the modern conspiracy theory seems to be. It was more vague, a more sense of, I don't like the sound of them being in charge type thing, but it was widely believed and widely held without evidence. I think we can look back and say now that there was no such thing as a Catholic conspiracy.
Yeah.
Right. Conspiracy theories, there's sort of two camps about how to understand them. So we have to consult a few theorists like nerds, right? So the first theorist is Jesse Walker, and he divided them into 5 different types. And the first one is the enemy outside. This is the idea that there's someone outside of your in-group that's threatening your in-group. This is the kind of conspiracy theory that is very popular among far-right fascists and the Nazis. So like the enemy outside, was like communism. And they had this idea that Bolsheviks would come and they would destroy you and you had to get rid of them first. That was the enemy without. To stick with the Nazis, type number 2, the enemy within. To Nazi Germany, that was the Jews. The Jews had infiltrated German society and were poisoning it from within.
Yeah.
Do you agree with both of those?
The definitions or the theories?
Oh, the definitions of the conspiracy theory. There's an enemy outside and an enemy within.
Yeah, I agree with the definitions.
Sometimes they kind of mix as well, like the alien conspiracy theories with the lizards. They're both an enemy outside in that they're from a lizard race that's somewhere else trying to, like, I don't know whether it's inside the Earth or from another planet, whatever version it is. They're somewhere outside humanity, but they're also the enemy within in that they're pretending to be our leaders. So it can be mixed. They're not mutually exclusive. So, nuance, people.
Yeah.
The third bit, the enemy above. This is powerful people manipulating events for their own gain. This is your Illuminati conspiracy or New World Order conspiracy. That these almost godlike creatures are pulling the strings in ways you could hardly imagine. And you're just along for the ride. Do you agree with that one?
Yeah.
The enemy below. Now, I wish this was true. Focuses on the lower classes overturning the social order. I wish that there would be more conspiracy theories like that. I wish the elite were more afraid of the lower orders.
I wish that was true.
All you need to do is look at the French Revolution to know how little they regard the lower classes. The whole, which probably didn't happen, the let them eat cake affair. Well, the idea was that they thought that the peasants would never revolt and there was nothing ever to fear from them.
Yeah, well, I don't want them to fear us because that would make them more, it's better if you underestimate the enemy. I mean, for the enemy. But yeah,
some countries do fear their populations. For example, the one criticism I have of the Chinese state is they're terrified of their own citizens.
Yeah. No, I wish that was true. Like, I wish that there actually was a ground conspiracy to overthrow the ruling class.
The final type is, and I never hear this one, the benevolent conspiracy. This is the idea that there are some angelic-like forces out there manipulating events for good reasons. I can't even think of an example of that except for religion.
Oh, I can. I mean,
go for it. Tell me.
Yeah, we have like this alien conspiracy, and they often go hand in hand with, there are two warring alien factions, and one of them.
Oh yeah, is it like the blonde aliens?
Yeah, exactly. The Nordics.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Pleiadians and Venusians, or what have you.
I'm getting very suspicious about how you know these in detail.
Because I when I was 14, 15, I was very into this.
We will be plugging what Christina knows and who she learnt it from when we come back from the break. Sit back, we'll be back in a moment. Thanks for listening to the Freeze Peach podcast.
Check in every Saturday for a brand new episode.
If you like the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review wherever you're listening. It really helps us in the rankings.
If you're on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, click the bell icon to receive full notifications when new episodes are released, and of course, like the video.
Please consider sponsoring us on Patreon. Due to not being based in the USA, our channel is unfortunately not eligible for advertising revenue on the Anchor network.
A small monthly donation will help us cover our costs. Just visit patreon.com/thefreespeechpodcast. Your contribution is greatly appreciated.
And remember to catch us on social media. We're on Twitter @the2peaches.
On Facebook at facebook.com/thefrozenpeaches.
And on Instagram at instagram.com/thefreezepeachpodcast.
And back to the show.
It is clear to everyone that Christina knows more than she lets on. But for now we have to trust her, even though there's likely Bill Gates nanobots coursing through her blood, transmitting via 5G towers back to her overlord George Soros. But regardless, maybe she could tune in to her very advanced internet connection and explore theorist number 2, who is Michael Barkin. He divided conspiracy theories into 3 sections, and he focused on their content as opposed to who is the bad guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So number 1 is event-based. This is whenever something weird happens and there's sort of confusion about it. And there's usually an investigation. The investigation has holes in it. The official story has issues, and the conspiracy theory slips in there little bits in between. The archetypal example is the assassination of JFK.
Yeah, I immediately thought of the Orwell incident. The Roswell incident, sorry.
Yep, that is an event one too, absolutely.
Yeah.
But the Roswell one is also, will be mentioned in a moment, it's also related to a larger conspiracy theory of the aliens. But event-based ones are the most common, and they're usually lacking supernatural elements. They're usually just good old-fashioned, somebody in power was covering something up. And JFK is the opposite one, where he did annoy the CIA, and the CIA were likely not so unhappy to be rid of him. Is it so much of a stretch that they either set up or encouraged or at least didn't get in the way of a way to get rid of him?
Mm.
It has a plausibility to it. That does not mean it's likely.
Right.
But yeah, they don't tend to rely on supernatural elements. Do you agree with all that?
Yeah.
The second one is the systemic conspiracy theory. This is broad, overarching conspiracy, usually to do with long-term take over the world-like goals. This is your New World Order or Illuminati conspiracy theory, where it's not just conceived of as something that's currently happening. It's conceived of as something with an ancient precedent. Some versions of it have it, I think it's Ike's version, has it going back to Sumeria, the first civilization, and continuing on. Like, these conspiracy theories are long-lived and have long-term goals. And they tend to be viewed as patient. They tend to be happy to slowly build up their control over time, and the story allows itself to meld in with the broader skeleton of human history.
Mm.
And I suppose that's why they're so successful, is that you can go back into history, and let's face it, history is filled with holes, because for most of our history, we weren't great at recording things. And there's plenty of spaces to infer the actions of some invisible cabal.
Yeah, for sure.
So, systemic conspiracy theories, do you agree?
Yeah.
The third and final one are my favorites. Super conspiracy theories. These are defined by their ability to bring all theories together and sort of offer a unified conspiracy theory of everything.
Mm.
This is sort of what David Icke was looking to do, really. It's a type of world building.
It is. It really, really is. That's what I'm saying. Conspiracy theories are a great source of inspiration for fantasy or science fiction.
Well, I would argue because they are fantasy and science fiction.
Yeah, they are.
I like these because they're just such big lies. It reminds me of how Hitler would say, if you're going to tell a lie, tell a massive one. People are less likely to actually be suspicious of something if it sounds ludicrous, because they rationalize in their head, well, no one's actually going to say something that mad unless it was true.
Yeah.
Funny how that works in people's minds, but the super conspiracy theories are interesting because they don't need to be coherent. Each of the conspiracy theories that are brought together to sort of merge into one big one are often mutually exclusive.
Mm.
So you've got this sort of like you can easily imagine the lizard people also talking about the capitalist elite NWO conspiracy theory, where it's a similar conspiracy theory, but they're not lizard, and believing both of them at the same time.
Mm.
And it doesn't bother them. It doesn't get in the way. They don't require internal consistencies. If you've ever read Tolkien's Legendarium, you know how much he was seriously into internal consistency. Conspiracy theories don't need any, but somehow they agglutinate. Somehow these super conspiracy theories stick together and they go on as a one unified hot mess.
Mm.
I don't know why. I just find that fascinating how it reminds me of like a blob, and it doesn't have any defined shape. It's just all mushed together in a sort of an abominable goo.
Mm.
Now, do you have anything to comment on our theorist, Michael Barkin, before we move on?
No.
Do you have anything to add, or do you agree with all that was said?
No, I think that's yeah, I agree with all that was said.
Excellent. So tell me, Christina, do you think conspiracy theories are dangerous?
They can be.
Okay, why?
I won't say the conspiracy theories are dangerous, like as like in and of itself. It depends on the theory. Like clearly, the Jew conspiracy theory was dangerous. That resulted in a lot of death and suffering. So. Yeah. So I'd say it depends on the theory. Most conspiracy theories, at least nowadays, are just lonely old basement dwellers who have nothing better to do and usually don't pose much of a threat. But any idea, if it gains enough traction and enough of a following, it can, really put marks in society. So
I think you're entirely wrong there.
Oh.
Conspiracy theories are, as you said, that you don't think that the modern versions of them are that serious because they're just weirdos in their basements talking to other weirdos. I would contest that strongly. For example, you said yes, the Jewish conspiracy of Nazi Germany, but what about far-right figures such as Timothy McVeigh and school shooters that have followed and copied him that are based off the same ones?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, look, that was what I said, that it depends on the theory and any idea against that. I mean, wouldn't that depend on what kind of people the theory attracts? And again, it also depends on in a sense, how religious it gets. I'm thinking of incel shootings, and that's basically a conspiracy theory in and of itself.
What about the one you're missing right now? It's so obvious that it's just not occurring to you. We're living through the COVID-19 pandemic. What about the anti-vax conspiracy theories?
Oh yeah, that one is dangerous for sure.
People aren't taking the vaccine. There was a couple of days ago, it was last week, as of the time of recording, that they were saying up to maybe a third of Americans are willingly not getting the vaccine.
Yeah. Look, what I was saying that I don't necessarily believe that a conspiracy theory is dangerous out of principle, out of the fact of being a conspiracy theory, but
yeah,
they are dangerous depending on the circumstances around it. So yeah, an anti-vaccine theory is absolutely dangerous. That's no-brainer. Like,
if you were to assess the danger of a specific conspiracy theory, one would have to assess the content of the theory and its relative acceptance among people.
Yeah, so that's why I don't know if I can just, answer that for all conspiracy theories. Like, there is definite potential for danger in a conspiracy theory, but that doesn't mean that all of them will be dangerous. But it also means that some of them will be extremely dangerous. So we have to judge them on a case-by-case basis.
I've got an example of a very dangerous one here. In South Africa, at some point, the government officially denied the reality of the AIDS crisis in their country. Thanks to their denial, 330,000 people died that was entirely preventable.
Yeah.
And if anyone says that's not dangerous, I have a bridge to sell you.
Yeah.
Another one is, what about QAnon that spurred Trump supporters to deny the results of an election, tried to storm the Capitol, and threatened to topple the US Constitution?
Yeah, that one is worrying for sure, especially how easily they got into there.
Oh, yeah, they can be. Never underestimate them. Most of them, and you're quite right in saying most of them will have like one or two people that believe them, and that's as far as it will go. However, the ones that get through, they drive people to a strange religious fanaticism.
Yeah.
And the belief in these conspiracy theories creates strange, damaging behavior and poor mental health. They're all susceptible to bouts of paranoia, bouts of anger, bouts of violent behavior, and often acts of hatred to other people. You can see that in the constant school shootings, like with Timothy McVeigh. You can see that in the formation of Northern Ireland, where they were suspicious that the Catholics would do something bad to them. There's always this sort of paranoid hatred.
Yeah. And I mean, I immediately think of incels, where most of them, are kind of worthless, but there are definitely some that slip to the cracks, and we have had, terror attacks committed by them. So to say that they aren't a threat would be extremely ignorant of reality, because they are.
We need to do something painful, and we need to try and put ourselves in the minds of these conspiracy theorists. So let's try and imagine for a while how they see the world. Imagine you're a conspiracy theorist. What does the world look like to you?
I mean, I have, in a sense, been one, but that's
okay. Lean into that then.
Yeah, but it's also difficult because I was very immature. I was a child, so
is that a disadvantage in understanding these people?
No, that's definitely an advantage. I'm just saying that that's so weird to me that we have people who aren't children who, well, they are mentally children. I would say that.
One of the most immature things about them is conspiracy theories believe themselves to, by some unknown magical mechanism, to have some sort of privileged insider position. So they somehow know things that others don't. And often they don't know anything, but they believe themselves to. Is that not a childish way of being?
It is. Absolutely.
A kid knows everything. A kid knows better than their parents.
Yeah, I think leaning into that very childish mentality, I think it was a need to feel special.
Absolutely.
Yeah. give your worthless little life some kind of meaning, some kind of narrative that justifies your existence.
Absolutely. The belief that the conspiracy theorist is an active agent in history and is actively influencing history by revealing the truth.
Yeah.
That's absolutely right. Perfect.
Yeah. And in reality, I was just a sad little 14-year-old with a really family situation. So
yeah, except most of them are like in their 40s.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. That's why it was so scary to me. Like, I have been one. I grew out of it when I turned 16. Like, yeah.
So, in order to be a conspiracy theory, you need to somehow put yourself in a mental position where you're outside the norm. You believe yourself somehow to be able to see past things that others can't. The veil of propaganda has been lifted from your eyes.
Yeah.
You have to have some sort of delusion of grandeur for that.
Absolutely. And, when you have no power in your day-to-day life, that idea is very appealing.
Additionally, the way I see it is there are also people that feel a great need to give answers, transparency, and order to that which may be confusing, opaque, or chaotic. They're somehow infuriated by something that's not understood. For example, if something happened in the woods when no one was there, you can just go and find the result of what happened. But you could only really make a guess at what happened. They can't live with that.
Yeah. Honestly, I can relate to that part. I kind of a control freak, and not understanding something and not knowing something freaks me out. So, so far to that part, I can relate.
In a strange way, there is a certain type of inquiring mind required to be a conspiracy theorist, but it's related to anyone who's like you could say a scientist has a similar type of inquiring mind, but they base them on different methods of thinking.
Yeah.
And so I don't know whether we might not judge them on such things, but more so judge how they do them. There's nothing wrong with being curious, and there's nothing wrong with asking questions. What there is something wrong is with how you ask those questions. There's a right and there is a wrong way to do it.
Well, not even how you're asking the questions, but what conclusions you draw from those questions.
Yes, but how you go about investigating them. What methods you use.
Yeah, but I mean, conspiracy theorists usually don't investigate at all.
That's true, yes. But they view their strange dot-connecting mental exercise as a type of investigation. I call that a type of creative writing.
Yeah.
Because the more I read about conspiracy theories, the more I'm thinking, this is what I do when I'm writing a book. When it's totally fictional, when it's like writing fantasy, this is what I do.
Yeah, that's why I love conspiracy theories out of like a creative standpoint. Like, there are so much great ideas for fiction in conspiracy theories.
An interesting factor about them, as much as they like to give answers to the unanswered, transparency to the opaque, and order to chaos, they really, 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 really hate external factors getting in the way of these theories. They often sort of see things like unintended consequences, accidents, chance, or incompetence as being impossible.
Yeah.
This is what I think sometimes, things like the JFK thing, right? How much of that was to do with the fact that the investigation was conducted by idiots?
Yeah.
Like, they're not often very good at their jobs. And
honestly, sometimes it goes the other way around too. Like, take for example, like the idea that aliens built the pyramids of Giza, and because they are so advanced and all that. And I remember that I shared this theory to a classmate and a friend, still a close friend of mine, and she was like, well, why do we have to invent aliens? Why can't humans have done something clever? And it really stuck with me. It's like, I didn't consider that was a part of it,
You're absolutely correct. They don't, they can't seem to grasp certain things that are outside whatever narrative they've established for themselves. So
Yeah.
just like the idea that a guy comes up with an awesome idea and does something awesome just seems impossible, when in reality, it's very plainly possible.
Yeah, and that's something that just really stuck with me. Not that I wasn't necessarily a conspiracy theorist by then. I had grown out of it, but I was intrigued by the ideas. But more so, I didn't consider that was a part of the equation of the psychology of this, and it just really hit me.
Conspiracy theorists also seem to be unable to process scale. I think this is because they're often created by people who work, they're introverted type of people that work in their own little rooms and they're writing their little books and things like that. They don't seem to comprehend that for things like, say, to fake the 9/11 attacks, just how many people and just how many millions of dollars and just how many loose ends and just how many things that could go wrong in such an operation. Instead, they generally view these gigantic organized conspiracy theories as not just occasionally successful, but continuously, regularly successful.
Yeah, and the 9/11 one is interesting because they look at all these inconsistencies and they point to them and say, look, there are these inconsistencies, there's only one explanation that the government did this. But there are more explanations. What I personally believe that the people in power knew that an attack was coming or might have been coming and just chose not to do anything about it.
Additionally, conspiracy theories have this strange idea that everything is pre-planned. They've almost an incredible level of determinism in their ideas about the world. There's nothing that ever happens because of unforeseen circumstances. Someone has to have planned it.
Yeah.
I consider myself a bit of a planner myself. I like to know what's going on, but the amount of things that happen in the day that I don't plan is unbelievable, and I don't even do very much.
Yeah.
But they don't. They just view everything. It's like, so-and-so happened to be this way. Well, who was behind that? Not necessarily anybody, bro.
Yeah.
And you don't even know how to respond when they say these things, because to them, that's the obvious answer. But to you, that's like, I don't see that at all.
Yeah.
And I think that's nothing to do with how you come to conclusions. That's something how your brain works. You can't seem to comprehend the differences of scale and the likelihood of certain events. You can't seem to crank up the odds in your mind.
Yeah, and it's so weird because they simultaneously overestimate and underestimate.
They just get it played wrong.
Yeah, just the humanity's capability to do things. Like, take the COVID conspiracy. Like, we never needed humans to create dangerous viruses.
This is the one you're saying that somebody made the virus on purpose. It was bioengineered.
Yeah, but like no, nature does that well enough for us. Look at the Black Death. Who made that? Who engineered that? Was it aliens? Like, nature is powerful.
Back in the day, they genuinely thought it was made by Satan.
Well, okay. Yeah, and simultaneously, like the pyramids of Giza, yeah, they were advanced, and humans can do advanced things. Like, it's just a general weird, not quite understanding how these processes work. And
I don't know. A way I could figure it out is there's just some inability in their psychology to correctly estimate the scale of likelihood and probability. They just can't get probability. It doesn't work with them.
Yeah.
Maybe someone should investigate that. Like, what part of the mind assesses what is likely and what isn't likely? Get on it. Now, we need to examine something you mentioned earlier, and it is important. Conspiracy theories are only as dangerous or potent as they are popular. So we need to talk about the popularity of them.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, some lunatic might have a conspiracy theory and shoot up their school. It has happened, but yeah.
Tell me, do you think conspiracy theories are popular?
Yeah, conspiracy theories are popular.
Why is that?
Why is that? I mean, isn't that what we have tried to
How do we
explain?
know that? How do we measure popularity?
Okay, well, I see a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
talking about them.
Well, yeah, you
Too
can see.
many.
Are they the subject of popular discourse? Is that what you're hearing around you? That's a decent, what's a decent estimate of something is popular? Are you hearing about them on TV, radio, or on the internet?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Or, but to be more scientific, you can take polls. You can actually find a conspiracy theory. Someone can send out a poll saying, do you believe in X, Y, or Z? So I've actually come to the belief that conspiracy theories are both fringe and mainstream, whereby a lot of them exist in a conspiracy theory cloud among a small group of people that are into conspiracy theories. But occasionally, one or two of them leak out of that cloud and go mainstream.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
So they're created for a certain audience, but can unpredictably get into the minds of the audience at large.
Mm-hmm.
We can see this one with QAnon. This was really niche on 4chan or 8chan. And it was only really popular among the dwellers of those forums until Fox News picked it up. Then other right-wing media outlets picked it up. And then when they started talking about it, the standard media like CNN or MSNBC or the BBC started talking about it.
Yep.
And you just saw how it went ballooned, and now everyone knows what QAnon is. And so because more people know what it is, there's more people who are like, yeah, that sounds good to me.
Yeah.
So conspiracy theory expansion from the fringe to the mainstream is aided and abetted by the internet and mainstream media, which may amplify a certain conspiracy theory to a wider audience. We agreed on that.
Yeah.
Here's an example I've got for you. 10% of Americans believe the chemtrail conspiracy theory, that somehow there's chemicals in the exhaust of airplanes.
Right. I never got that one. I never understood the origin of that one.
So 10% of Americans think it's absolutely true. 20 to 30% somewhat true, making 120 million Americans in total as believers of the chemtrail conspiracy theories. That's a lot of people, bro. That is a lot of people.
Yeah, but that's a stupid thing. Like, are the chemicals in exhaust fumes? Yeah, likely. But like the overarching, like, they put it there on purpose to control people's minds. That's the weird part.
From someone who's into airplanes and knows how to fly a few of them, those so-called contrails, they're just condensed water vapor. That's why they look like clouds.
Yeah, okay.
There's nothing there to look at it. If you want to complain about how much CO2 the burning of the jet fuel puts out, I'm with you. But there ain't no mind-controlling chemicals in the contrails.
Yeah, I'm also thinking, like, why aren't they complaining about cars?
Yeah, they don't often. But the funny thing is, these conspiracy theories often don't believe climate change is real.
Right. So isn't it a weird one? Like we know that the exhaust fumes from cars are bad for us and for everyone else. Why aren't we talking about that?
That was actually one thing that didn't come up in the research I was doing, but I think should be in. There's an element to a conspiracy theorist of contrarianism. Whatever's held to be widely true, they're going to swing to the other side.
Yeah, but that's so weird. That really is so weird. Like, we need to
finish off here.
It's just wasted energy.
True.
Like, imagine if they brought their militant anger to cars and the bad fumes and smog and all that stuff. Like,
that would mean they would have to have an affinity with reality, though.
Yeah, but they could at least do some good. Ugh.
Right, we need to finish off with examining the conspiracy believer. We've already looked at the theorist, now we need to look at the believer. So, believers are actually tend to be non-partisan, although most successful conspiracy theories in the present day are from the right wing and promote right-wing goals. There is no correlation of political leaning when it comes to believing them. Some left-wing people believe in QAnon, for example, but there is no difference between the amount of left-wingers and right-wingers who believe in conspiracy theories. The difference seems to be in right-wing conspiracy theories are more successful. I say that's because the right-wing propaganda machine like Fox News picks them up. I think that's why they tend to be more successful, because the right-wing's got money.
And I want to point this out, because when I was, as I said, very young and into conspiracy theories, I did not necessarily believe everything I came across, but I was fascinated by it, and I believed some of them, especially aliens. I really wanted aliens to be true, because I felt lonely, I guess. Anyways, aliens probably exist, but the conspiracy theorists around them, whatever. Point being, it took me time to realize that a lot of these theories I had come across was actually right-wing propaganda, or in some cases religious propaganda, Christian propaganda, or like the idea of Nordic aliens has its roots in
Nazi ideology.
Yeah, it's a Nazi ideology, and I didn't realize it when I was 14.
That's kind of the point as well. It snares the unwary.
Yeah. And when you realize that after when I got older, it was like, well, damn. Why didn't I see this?
Oh, don't feel so bad. There you go. Left-wingers and right-wingers are equally likely to believe conspiracy theories. Number 2, they tend to have anti-government instincts. So they tend to be promoters of negative liberty. People that fall for conspiracy theories tend to be wanting to be free from things.
Yeah.
If you think about it, world controlling cabals and stuff, that's like the negative libertarian's nightmare, the top-down control of their lives. They want their own little patch free from interference. Would you say when you were younger, did you have negative liberty tendencies?
I would not say that this was the core of my fascination with conspiracy theories. I definitely
think for right-wing conspiracy theories, that's the core for sure.
Yeah, but for me, it was a sense of, not having any control for my day-to-day life, which I didn't have. Like, I had a very traumatic family situation. So, in hindsight, it's like no wonder that I was drawn to these, grand ideas.
But then again,
the world is bigger than my issues at home and, all that.
But could that not be reinterpreted as you wanting to be free from your situation?
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. That's precisely what it was for me personally.
Yep. Okay. Next, they tend to have low levels of knowledge about politics. I doubt that's a shock.
Yeah.
That's why they have to come up with the theories. They lack the actual understanding of how the world works to make a coherent, rational theory about why something happened.
Yeah, for sure.
But you get that why there's always conspiracy theories about cultural Marxists and stuff from people that don't like capitalism but don't realize it's actually capitalism that's causing the problem.
I know, that one is the amount of problems caused by capitalism that people blame on communism. Well, it's impressive. It really is.
There's the final feature of the conspiracy believer is something I think we can actually relate to. They tend to be skeptical towards things like their vote having any meaning. They believe that their political influence in the world is minimal and they are very small.
Yeah, and in this respect, I think they both can sympathize with them.
It's not an excuse for them, though.
No, it's not an excuse, but what you said at the beginning, that the ruling elite have a unified interest in, furthering the goals of their social class. It doesn't go hand in hand. But I lost my train of thought there, but whatever.
Yeah, they tend to just feel, probably quite rightly, they don't matter. They're not part of the ruling class. They don't have any clout. And I struggle to disagree with them there.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for watching. Please stay tuned for our final section where we react to stuff on the internet. Sit back, relax. I'll be back with you in a moment. The internet is a terrible place, and it's filled with terrible people. Foremost among them is Florida Republican Matt Gaetz, who is under investigation for trafficking a 17-year-old minor across state borders. This was exposed by a state official called Joel Greenberg, who was caught funneling money to pay for prostitutes for himself and Gaetz to enjoy. Greenberg released a confession letter saying Gaetz had sex with a young girl and admitted Gaetz paid him money which he funneled to them. Apparently, they tried to get Roger Stone, one of Trump's cronies, allegedly by paying him $250,000, to ask Trump to give them a preemptive pardon before he left office. They did not receive it. Regardless of this scandal, Marjorie Taylor Greene, the QAnon nutjob, is going to go on an American First tour with this likely paedophile Matt Gaetz. So much for QAnon being against paedophiles.
Wow.
Yep, the whole idea of a QAnon is there's a cabal, or as Marjorie Taylor Greene would wrongly call them, a cabal, because she can't talk, of paedophiles that are supposedly in the Democratic Party. Yet she's caucusing and buddying up and going on a pro-Trump tour with what is likely a paedophile.
I'm not at all surprised, but the amount of the
projection.
What's with these people and their total and complete lack of self-awareness?
They're actually doing projection.
The mental dissonance is just, wow.
Remember what they said in their conspiracy theory, that the Democratic Party, their enemies, are all pedophiles. Yet it's their own party that seems to be filled with pedophiles.
Yeah, I know.
Is that not the projection?
It is. I'm just so I'm impressed that they lack self-awareness. I'm really impressed. I don't know what else to say.
Marjorie Taylor Greene always impresses me because QAnon is the central thing of her worldview. That's her ideology. That's her political identity, is this belief in taking down pedophiles. Why isn't she taking down Matt Gaetz?
Yeah.
What would you say to this person? Like, there's your pedophile, man. And the point is, part of the QAnon conspiracy theory is that the deep state, like the civil service, the CIA, etc., are all in on this pedophile ring, right? And yet Matt Gaetz is teaming up with this government worker, Joel Greenberg, to hook up with minors. Is that not exactly what they were accusing the Democrats of?
Well, it is. I mean, I am thinking of this whole Epstein
absolutely
scandal, and he was cozy with Trump.
Trump, in fact, said Epstein was a wonderful guy. In fact, Trump actually came out one of his interviews and said, "Oh, Epstein, like me, he loves beautiful girls." And then he said something like, "But he likes them on the younger side," is what Trump said.
Yeah.
Trump knew. Trump absolutely knew.
Oh, of course, no doubt in my mind about that.
And he is literally the source of pedophilia. This guy, the kingpin of pedophilia. And they were all Republicans.
I know.
It's incredible. But it's the Democrats. It's Hillary Clinton is in charge of this pedophile ring, It's Hillary Clinton might be a villain, but not in that particular way.
Yeah, I know. It's weird. They are assigning a lot of power to Hillary Clinton that I don't think she has.
Do you remember the origin of QAnon actually emerged out of this Pizzagate incident where they thought there was in a basement of a pizzeria, there was a pedophile ring?
I still don't understand where the heck that came from.
And the best bit is an idiot with a gun stormed the place, like properly with a loaded gun, stormed a pizzeria, terrorizing people eating pizza, to find out it didn't even have a basement.
Yeah. know. Where does this come from? I have looked into this to try to understand how this came into fruition, and I still don't understand. It's a complete mystery to me.
As much as I picked this story because it tied into our conspiracy theory theme today, I wanted to really ask the question, what is it with the right-wing mind that generates conspiracy theories that reflect their own shortcomings?
Yeah.
Does it make it easier for them to sleep at night, to imagine all the bad things that they do are actually done by the people they hate?
Yeah, I think it's a good old combination of being both morally corrupt and stupid as rocks.
I don't know. Do they go around? Do they go through the day in a haze? Like, do they not condense their thoughts into any sort of categories? It's like, I can't imagine what it's like to be a right winger.
Well, me neither. That's for sure. As I always said, right-wingers are either evil or stupid, and often both.
Hooray! That's just it's just like when I think about these things, it's just so absurd, man. It's just so crazy. I can't do it.
I know.
All right, let's leave Marjorie Taylor Greene. I told you last time she'll come up again, and she will definitely come up more than once in the future. She's that crazy. She's always coming out with new stuff. Okay. A UK cop was dismissed after beating a 17-year-old disabled girl at least 30 times with a baton. The girl had run away from a group during an escorted walk in Newham in distress. The girl was close to a dangerous road, and members of the public were concerned and called the police. She herself flagged down a police car by the roadside. She told them she was a vulnerable person with a disability. She agreed to get into the cop car, but then panicked and got out. The cop tried to handcuff her but was unsuccessful, so they sprayed her in the face with CS spray and then started beating her with a baton. Another cop car arrived and immediately tasered her. PC Kemp, the police officer who beat her, then beat her some more. She was black, but no racial element was suspected by authorities. But he failed to take into account her disability. Now, I picked this one because usually we talk about police brutality in the American context. This is the UK context. The UK police don't have guns.
Yeah.
But still, let's accept that there was no racial element. What do you think of their treatment of someone with disability?
Well, deplorable.
She informed them that she was a vulnerable person with a disability. She told them.
Did they forget? Or was they just looking for a reason to beat the hell out of someone that day?
Exactly. What were they thinking? She informed them, I have a disability. And how much clearer can you get? Last week we covered the lady who was taken down because in America because she took $14 worth of stuff from Walmart who had dementia. She actually didn't say she was disabled, even though she clearly was. This person actually said, I am a vulnerable person with a disability.
Wow.
What are they training these cops to do? Are they...
I truly wonder.
Surely that if you're meant to be a law enforcement officer, you're meant to have a level head. You're meant to be able to understand what someone is communicating to you. You're meant to be able to listen to the people in distress, understand their problems and suggest a solution. Does this cop not understand the concept of being disabled?
It would seem so.
And apparently he beat her with a baton over 30 times.
Very, very nice. Very, very... These stories just make me so sad. I don't know what to say.
What I want to know is, why do we have police officers if they're a menace to society?
I truly wonder that as well. How does this happen? How?
It's makes me wonder the type of person that signs up to be a police officer willingly.
Yeah, because and how they train them and how they...
I can't exactly answer this because I live in Northern Ireland, and even though it's also in the UK, we're separate countries in a way as well. It's our methods are different. For example, the police in Northern Ireland carry a gun. So I actually can't comment on their training. I don't know. But is there something wrong with their vetting process that they pick up psychos?
I mean, there must be.
I also wonder to think, the police are meant to, like, what is it they say in America? Serve and protect.
Yeah.
Where is that? Where is the service and protection? I don't see it.
Yeah, me neither.
For example, what type of person do you think should be a cop? What type of personality should be a cop?
Someone who is dominant but altruistic.
Yes, I think someone who should be a cop should be the person who has a very clear philosophy about what is the way to solve problems. You should prioritize absolutely the non-violent approach. The violent approach should be the last on your list. And a police officer should have a very well-developed moral code in that regard about what they're trying to do. They're trying ultimately to prevent harm happening to as many people as possible. So, for example, if someone is being dangerous, they want to get that person away from other people, but they also want to reduce the amount of harm they do to the felon themselves.
Yeah, and this is something that I think, I mean, Swedish police, as far as I'm aware, are taught to really prioritize the non-violent method. And we don't have things like this. Like, I have heard of one case of police brutality. One in Sweden.
The only thing I can think of when she told them that she was disabled, what ideas came into their head? Did they view disabled people as dangerous? Did they think, oh, she's a whack job, she might go off on one? Is that what they thought?
I don't know. It's scary.
And they beat her 30 times, tasered her, and pepper sprayed her.
Great.
This is a teenager with a disability.
Mm.
And you have to sort of wonder, just why didn't they just restrain her normally?
Yeah.
If she needed to be restrained at all? Why? What? They didn't offer an explanation. And then when the punishment came, they just dismissed them. In America, they wouldn't have even got fired. But in the cop got the sack. They didn't get any criminal prosecution, though. Because I may not be a cop, but I am absolutely positive that beating a disabled girl 30 times with a baton is not standard protocol.
Yeah.
Like, jeez, it just doesn't ring true for me. Well, we'll leave that cop in the background for now. And all we can do is fathom at the type of psychos that these institutions let into their halls. And the amount of disgrace and disrepute it has brought the police services of Britain and America into. I don't know. I don't think these services, the damage that the people's trust have in them has been unbelievable. I don't know how they're ever going to get it back.
Yeah, me neither.
All right, last thing. Legislating against trans kids does not lead to kids who aren't trans. It leads to kids who don't grow up.
Indeed.
What do you think about the Conservatives and Republicans and things like that who make laws trying to, either illegalize or sideline transgender people?
I would want them to ask themselves why they are so occupied with telling someone how to live their life if it isn't affecting anyone but themselves,
That's actually an interesting answer. Because conservatives are known to have a very, very thin circle of empathy. That's this idea of how many people you can imagine having an experience.
Yeah.
Most conservatives only have their friends and family. For example, there's a famous one. Ever heard of I think it's The View. It's a TV program in America, The View. And it's got like Meghan McCain and Whoopi Goldberg.
Nope.
Type of talk show. It's a morning breakfast talk show, right? And
Okay.
Meghan McCain is the daughter of John McCain, the congressman. And she always says, my father, my father, my father, my father, my father. Often known as the nepotism girl. But she always used to talk about how, she's against maternity leave. She was against the idea of legally sanctioned maternity leave for American women until she herself had children.
Yeah.
And then she was like, oh, I get it now. No, I'm for that. That is common with conservatives. They don't understand anything until it happens to either themselves or their direct friends or family. That is a limited circle of empathy. And the more left you go, the larger that circle of empathy. As you get to the far left, you have a near total circle of empathy when we're concerned with universals, that which affects everyone. Because we have the mental capacity to imagine how something could affect anyone around the world.
Yeah.
While a conservative shrinks that way down to a point, to either themselves or their family.
Yeah, and isn't it also fascinating how conservatives always talk about personal freedom, but yet they're so keen to limit the personal freedom of other people, and where they just disagree with, like, oh no, I don't like gays.
Exactly.
You shouldn't be free to be that, but like, it doesn't affect you.
I should be free of government interference unless it's about your womb, women, or Jesus.
Yep. Precisely so.
That actually kind of goes into like the deep contradiction of their belief system. For example, most of them are Christians, and the Christians view a tyrannical, monarchical God whose word is law. That's kind of the opposite of libertarian ideals.
Yeah.
But the dissonance to which conservatives live is incredible. So it's interesting, though. They've had to like lay off just hating standard gay people, because at this point, so many people have come out. Even conservatives have had to like get to the point where someone they know, if not one of their own children, is gay. And they've had to like they've been bowled over by the sheer numbers. And their ability to like successfully get away with bad mouthing them is going down the drain.
Yeah.
They just get utter backlash. And so they're going on to the next minority, trans people. There's very few of them. They're such a relatively weaker group. The LG, general, like for example, LGB people compared to trans people. There's just so much more of the other one. There's more punishment involved for dissing the big group than there is for dissing the little group.
Yeah.
Well, the funny thing was, under that logic, as more people come out as trans, that group's going to become more formidable as well. And they're going to have to pick another small group. And it's going to get more niche and more niche and more niche until they're like picking on, like, I don't know, like albino hedgehogs.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this, I'm glad to say it, because my grandma, outing her, anyway, in the beginning, she was very not understanding towards trans people and was like, oh, in my time we had no trans people. But like, yes, you had, but they just didn't have the freedom to express themselves.
You just had quiet trans people.
Yeah. So like, I don't understand that mode of thinking. Like,
well, there's not much thinking in it. It's just a gut reaction. That sounds weird. I don't like it.
Yeah, it is. I mean, to her credit, when I told her that, she was like, yeah, you may be right. And I don't give her credit as often because she usually doesn't deserve it. So, like, to her credit, she realized that part. But yeah, it's a weird. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we told you the internet was a terrible place. We didn't lie. So, join us again next week. But before that, if you have a moment and you wish to allow Christina to ascend to her mighty throne as dictator of all the world, please go to www.patreon.com/the Free Speech Podcast and donate 1, 5, 10, 100, all your money, whatever amount of dollars you have, send them our way. The more, if we get over 5 patrons, we'll make the episodes available a few days earlier for our patrons than it is for the general public. But till then, thanks for listening. I'm Niall. That was Christina, if the rumors are to be believed and the conspiracy theories are true. And this was the Free Speech Podcast. Or was it?